Well, we can go back now to our Aramesh, who's a national security and foreign policy analyst, joining us live from Houston. We were talking about Washington's relationship with Tehran following the test of that ballistic missile. Thank you very much for staying on the line. Apologies for the fact the gremlins got into the system there. We were talking about the definition of what Washington means exactly when it says that Iran is on notice. And I wanted to ask you about the lack of exact clarity from that statement. Does that put officials in Tehran on the back foot in some way?
I don't think so. It's actually giving a better, bigger platform to the hardliners in Iran, those supporting the supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, who is definitely a hardliner and has always criticized moderates in Tehran for trying to reach out to the states. It's also giving the IRGC, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, an additional legitimate point by saying, hey, or it's sort of a point to try to legitimize, to be correct, to try to legitimize their, expansionist military sort of strategy. Let me just give you three quick bullet point sort of facts and data points that is important. First and foremost, while there is a lot of disagreement among key cabinet figures on certain issues, such as enhanced interrogation and torture, or how do we deal with Russia, or how to deal with certain economic issues. When it comes down to national security, there could be a lot of disagreement. But General Mattis, Secretary of Defense, John Kelly at the Department of Homeland Security, Michael Flynn at National Security, at the head of National Security Council, he's Presidential National Security Advisor, and a few more key advisors, such as Stephen Bannon, Senior Advisor to the President. They have a lot of disagreements on a lot of issues, but they all agree on one thing. They want to get much, much tougher on Iran. And that's what they've been saying now for years. So that's one thing. Second, you look at the executive order that placed a temporary ban on a lot of visa holders and green card holders from Iran, Iraq, Syria, Sudan, Somalia, and Libya and Yemen. And you see of those 7 countries, 4 of them are either Shia majority or in the direct sphere of influence of Iran. I'm talking about Yemen, Iran, Iraq, and Syria. So, and the third thing is you see today and yesterday the ratcheting up of rhetoric between Mike Flynn and now President Trump. So I think they're gearing up for something bigger than that. And I think whether it's trying to, somehow put more pressure on Iran or more pressure on the government in Tehran, my analysis is, this sort of saber rattling is only going to strengthen the hardliners in Tehran, and President Rouhani, who represents a somewhat of a moderate, let's say not a hardliner faction in Tehran, who's facing re-election in a couple of months, is going to get the shorter end of the stick.
If Washington wants to be firmer with Tehran, what does this say about the future of the nuclear deal? Does it have a future, or could it be ripped up?
It all depends on how the two sides are going to carry it out. On the one hand, after several years of sanctions put together by the Obama administration, after building a beautiful coalition, to use a Trump analogy, beautifully terminology, it was put together bigly and beautifully, brought the Iranians back to the table. The European Union, the P5+1, that's the 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council plus Germany. They all agreed on enforcing real tough sanctions on Iran and bringing them back to the negotiating table. The Iranians did come back. They negotiated. We got a deal. We got a deal. And now, as Americans, we have to see, while the deal has some flaws, it also has some really, really good things in it. For instance, to make sure that Iran has dismantled most and all of its key nuclear facilities, stopped enrichment, has stopped any enrichment above a certain percentage. And on top of that, of the $150-some-odd billion that we've promised the Iranians, so far they've only gotten peanuts. So they haven't gotten the $156 billion that, you hear President Trump and Michael Flynn keep talking about it. That's not what they've received. Is the deal going to stand? I'm not sure, and I don't know. I certainly hope so. But for deals of this nature and for deals of this sort to withstand tough headwinds, you need real cool heads, and you really need cool heads to prevail. I don't know if Steve Bannon or Mike Flynn or President Trump in D.C. or the radical hardliners in Tehran really have those cool heads. I think once you push them in a corner, they're going to react worse and worse. So we'll see how it works out. But then, on a final note on this topic, I want to add that it's going to be much harder now to get European and international support for any action against Iran, and the Iranians know it. And now they know because of the things President Trump has been saying and the things he's been doing, hanging up on the Australian Prime Minister, criticizing our leaders, our allies in NATO and in Europe, and cozying up to Vladimir Putin. They know that, at least in the world global opinion, right now, unfortunately, America does not have the upper hand.
Okay, Arash, fascinating times. Thank you for talking to us.